Welcome. We're back on the second week of the Dynasty Guys podcast. I'm your host, Brent Wassell, here with my co-host,
John Gross.
Quick news and notes for you. In the world of fantasy football, there's been some minor injuries with Darius Guice and Tevin Coleman. Some more serious injuries we'll get into with Tyreek Hill and Hunter Henry.
And, of course, you also got your AB situation. I was kind of getting bored after a couple of days of no news with AB, so we're back to status quo now with the new unfortunate rape allegations.
Yes, he might not play. It's NFL's trying to make a decision quickly. We will see what happens with that, but first off, I would like to start off with on-the-air, live, trade offer and discussion, so you can hear how trade negotiations go down. We'll talk about it. We might come to a consensus and make a deal. We might not.
Yeah. Brent did text me before we were about to commence with this podcast about an hour or two ago and said, be prepared. I am about to offer you a live trade, so I do not know what trade this is going to be. Brent and I are in 4 Dynasty leagues together, and I am ready to hear. I have no idea what league this is. This is just going to be off the cuff, but I like the sweat, so give it to me, baby. Give us a breakdown first of what the league is and what the point scoring parameters are.
Yeah. So this is a 10-team Dynasty, of course.
PPR?
Superflex tight end premium
Superflex.
PPR.
Okay.
Superflex, of course, meaning you can start a quarterback in the flex spot. Tight end premium means 1.5 points per reception on the tight end side. So
Correct.
in this league, I feel that I have a very good contending team. I went hard on the initial startup draft we did this summer. I traded some future capital. You did the opposite. You gave up a bunch of draft picks to gain future capital.
Correct.
Although you did have a pretty good week one.
Correct. I did have a pretty good week one. I traded away, or I ended up recouping from the initial startup draft an extra 2020 first. That's gold. And I also have 4 2020 seconds right now and 2 2021 firsts. And I have 2 2020 thirds. So I'm definitely stocked up for years to come, but had a pretty good week one. And I don't know where I am right now. I'm definitely going to try to compete if I can, but I'm definitely have a younger team. So anyways, I'm interested to hear what you got for me.
Yeah, you actually had the highest potential points, meaning the depth of your bench and what happened there was pretty high.
I'm ready, and this is live, so I told Brent beforehand. He sends this trade to me, and if I want it and I accept it on air, it's going down.
I'm just pulling it up right here. So I'm big on going in on contending. So what I would like to acquire is the tight end by the name of Mark Andrews, as well as the wide receiver by the name of John Ross. And for that, I am willing to offer you a 2021 first, a 2021 third, and a 2021 fourth.
Okay. See, I wish that was a 2020 first, not a 2021. It is tight end premium, so that really makes Mark Andrews a little bit more valuable than what he is if he's in a non-premium league. There's a lot of upside there. Last year he was probably going in tight end premium leagues like late second. John Ross has the big game. I've been trying to trade him, and he's one of our dynasty focus players we're talking about later tonight. So I don't want to get the cart before the horse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to decline. I will counter out of respect, and we'll just do one counter here unless things are heating up.
Okay.
Trade you John Ross for your 2020 second.
I don't think I have a... No, I do have a 2020 second for John Ross. That's it's not a bad offer. I was more interested in Mark Andrews for that.
Okay.
What if I gave you a 2021 first and third for Mark Andrews and a 2021 second?
So a first, a second, and a third for Mark Andrews.
First and a third for Andrews and a second.
No, that's even worse. So I don't think that's going to be happening tonight. I'd rather have Andrews in a second than... Well, it's right on the borderline, I suppose, at this point with Ross. After one game now, apparently he's worth more than he was beforehand. Before that game, he's probably worth like a late third. Now, all of a sudden, I've seen some trades him going for a second. So,
is Mark Andrews worth more than a 2021 first to you?
It's right on the borderline. Again, with my team on the cusp, if you offered me a 2020 first, I would accept for Mark Andrews, even in a tight end premium league. The 2021 first, it's tough.
I would
not
want
being
a
totally
little-
where the class is.
I would want a little bit of sugar on top of Mark Andrews for a 2021 first, and you got a deal.
You don't have a 2020 first.
2021 first.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is I don't think that that's something that I'm completely prepared to pull the trigger on tonight.
Alrighty. Well, moving on. We're gonna go through.
Sorry, folks, didn't happen. On-air trade didn't happen.
Did not happen. We're gonna do a recap of all of the games. We'd already gone through the Thursday night game on the last podcast where we had recorded. So the first game here to discuss is the Los Angeles Rams against the Carolina Panthers. The Rams won 30-27. In that game, what did you think of Malcolm Brown getting the touchdowns as opposed to Gurley? What's the fantasy impact on that?
Yeah, I kind of alluded about this on our previous first podcast, inaugural podcast that we had, and it looks like it pretty much came out exactly how I said, and which is I'm looking at Gurley this year as a lower end RB1. He looked great. I believe he had, how much was it, 97 yards rushing, if I'm not correct?
He did. Yeah, 97 rushing, 4 receiving, just 101 from scrimmage.
Right. So he looked good. I saw some of his runs. He's got speed, got the burst, but they're keeping him safe away from that goal line and trying to limit his touches like I predicted. I think most people were thinking it was going to be Darrell Henderson this year, but lo and behold, Malcolm Brown, who I have stashed in a couple of my benches, actually took both of the carries at the goal line for touchdowns. Henderson got a carry as well at the goal line, but didn't make anything of it.
Yep.
So, it's tough to be a Gurley owner at this point. I'm holding. If he blows up and has a big game, I might be open to selling him if I can get a good price for him. But he's going to be, I think, a lower end RB1. I've looked over and get more involved in the passing game, and he's got a big game coming up here against the New Orleans Saints.
Absolutely.
That game could be fire for him as well, and could be an opportunity if you're looking to get out on Gurley to be able to do so right after that game, after 2 solid outings. Again, 97 yards, or what was it, 97 or 96 yards?
97 rushing, 4 receiving.
Yards.
Yeah.
That's nothing to sneeze at.
No, not at all.
Nice.
I think it's more of a good on Malcolm Brown as opposed to a dig on Gurley. I mean, 101 scrimmage yards, that's fantastic. Had he got the touchdowns, he would have been up there. How about on the Panthers side? Christian McCaffrey, obviously, Dynasty Elite, top. How about Cam Newton, though? Especially from a super flex league perspective, he only put up less than 6.5 points.
Yeah, I mean, I got Cam Newton somewhere around that 5, 6, or 7 range as far as a Dynasty quarterback. Last year, obviously, he had that shoulder issue, which really hampered him down the stretch, and he was only throwing those short dimes. I think the Rams' defense definitely shouldn't be overlooked. That defense is pretty good. I'm not pushing the panic button on Cam Newton at all. I think with DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel coming up, a healthy Greg Olsen, and then, of course, we all know about the CMC. I'm not pushing the panic button at all on Cam Newton. Should be good to go for the season.
All right. Moving on, the next game here, Tennessee Titans versus the Cleveland Browns. We had hyped the Browns up pretty high. I think the entire fantasy world had hyped the Browns up pretty high.
It wasn't a hot take.
No. And obviously things did not pan out. So 2 things to highlight here. Derrick Henry looked like the real deal. What do you have to say about him?
Ooh. He's a giant, 6'3", 247, just an absolute beast. Looked like the real deal. He's catching those screens for the 75-yard touchdown. A lot of people were talking about how the Titans were going to be very run-centric, and with the way they got out to the lead and the way their defense was playing, if that ends up being the case, if their defense is able to continue to make strides under Mike Vrabel, the head coach, I would not be surprised whatsoever if Derrick Henry becomes a bell cow. Dion Lewis had minimal usage, so really with Henry, man, I'm liking him as a low-end RB1. Question the receiving upside, but, I mean, he taking a 75-yard screen to the house, it ain't bad.
Yeah. How about the Browns? I mean, Mayfield, we love him. I was just talking about how I think he's a top 3 quarterback.
Yeah. I actually have him as my number 2 overall
3 interceptions.
quarterback. Yeah, I'm not pushing the panic button by any means, right?
Is it nerves? Is it overconfidence?
I think you got to underestimate the Titans' defense. I think there could be an element of overconfidence there. Man, we all know he's an extremely accurate quarterback. He's got the fiery competitiveness to win. They get a good rebound opportunity against the Jets, who they do have a fair defense. I'll get on Monday Night Football this week, but I'm absolutely not pushing the panic button on Baker Mayfield. And if anyone is pushing the panic button in your leagues, go out there and buy him in a super flex league.
Take advantage of it. I like it. Next game, Kansas City Chiefs against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The story there, Sammy Watkins, almost 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. Also, Tyreek Hill got injured. With his injury, is Sammy Watkins going to be the clear-cut target there?
Yeah, it looks like Tyreek Hill could be out for about 6 weeks, give or take, depending on how that injury progresses. Sammy Watkins, man, highly drafted, started off with the Bills, has been to the Rams as well for a year, and then has made his way over to the Chiefs. Chronically injured, but when he is healthy, he's an absolute elite talent. His work ethic is second to none. And in that offense, man, the sky's the limit. I'm liking him. I've always had a fair opinion of Sammy Watkins, as he should be a wide receiver 1, but when you got Kelsey and Hill there, it's tough to do. Great in that offense, especially with Hill being out. I expect nothing but continuing him to be a very, very high asset, continuing to make big plays this year. Absolutely. Yeah, it was not a fluke.
If anyone's pushing the panic button on Tyreek Hill, good time to buy.
Yeah, there's always that risk involved because of his off-field stuff. Is it a good time to buy? It's always a good time to buy if people are pushing the panic button on an injury that it's not going to affect his speed. It's not like he tore his ACL or anything like that. He's going to be back, could help you for that late season push. Yeah, absolutely. But my guess is most people are holding pretty tight if they have him. They've already been through the volatility throughout the offseason. This isn't going to be anything to change their minds.
Okay. For the Jags, we're going to do a deep dive on the quarterback situation a little bit later. Let's briefly touch on Fournette. You had said you were really happy to see him. He had 66 yards on the ground, 4 receptions for 28 yards and a fumble.
Yeah, and that fumble was the first of his career in the NFL. He's usually ironclad with that ball around, vice grip around his hands. Yeah, everything I saw, there's no trepidation whatsoever. He was a beast as far as snap share is concerned. He was on the field almost every play. So I absolutely have no worry about him. He looked good when he had the ball in his hands. Still has that power, but like I said, he's been slimmed down to that 225-ish range. So absolutely no trepidation whatsoever. Big disappointment against the Chiefs, but they're going to get an opportunity here now going against Houston. With now that Minshew's in the fold, the rookie quarterback, they want to hand it off to Fournette even more. So I have no trepidation with him. Absolutely love him. If he stays healthy this year, I still have him as a RB1.
Perfect. Next game, we had talked about the poor little Dolphins last week.
Those poor little Dolphins.
And what was going to happen to them. And we didn't think it would be as high of a scoring affair, but ridiculous numbers all across the board. I mean, Hollywood Brown, Willie Snead got a touchdown. Didn't see that coming. Ingram on the ground had 107 yards, pair of touchdowns. Lamar Jackson, 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, I was expecting way more of that rushing production with Lamar. Was really surprised, but happy to see his passing abilities. Didn't have to pass it that much either. I think that Marquise Brown only had 4 or 5 catches, but man, he made them count.
4 catches, yep. 147 yards.
Yeah, and 2 tutties.
Yep.
So he looked nice. That whole offense, I think, is going to come back down to earth, especially when it comes to the passing game. But is it going to be formidable with a potentially formidable defense? We're going to have to kind of wait and see on that defense. I mean, they're playing the Dolphins, but they should still be good.
Yeah.
I like what I saw. I was pleasantly surprised by the Hollywood Brown action.
Yeah. Lamar Jackson, what was his quote? He said, not bad for a running back.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, awesome. Next game, hometown pride, Vikings. We had talked about Dalvin Cook. You had made your bold prediction last week. Cook ends up with 21 carries for 111 yards, pair of touchdowns, couple receptions. Kirk Cousins threw the ball 10 times. 10.
Yeah, that's not going to happen again.
It's probably not going to happen again, but it worked. The game plan worked. It was executed. Even looking at the interviews with Kirk, he had said he'd never had a game so easy with running backs he could trust so much.
Yeah, Cook was on fire, like I said last week, for those who weren't listening. I got as my bold prediction this year, if Calvin Cook can stay healthy, which I guess that's maybe an unfair caveat there, but I put it in there. He will be the number one overall running back. Better than Zeke, better than Kamara. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Man. The offensive scheme is set for him. He's ready to go.
How about for the Falcons? Let's talk about this specifically from a dynasty perspective. We've dealt with injuries in the past. Devonta Freeman. He only had 8 carries for 19 yards. He had a fumble. He didn't look that great.
No, there was some hype from the offseason that he was going to be looking good and going to be coming up through the ranks. Not coming up through the ranks, that's not the right, but he was going to be having a redemption from forms of yesteryear.
Yeah, big comeback.
He's not that old. I think he's 27. The issue with that whole situation, he's splitting carries. Ito Smith got in some action too there.
He did.
I've never been too high on Devonta Freeman, and it certainly didn't look well. Now, granted, that was against the Vikings defense, but they're not going to be getting any easier against Philly coming up here on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah. The next game, Bills-Jets, ended up being a very close game. Le'Veon Bell was back. I thought he looked great. I've acquired him in a few leagues. I'm very happy with that. I think he's still going to be top 10 running back this year. You agree?
He played every single snap for the Jets. 100%
snap?
100% snap share.
I think McCaffrey had that as well for the Panthers.
Yeah, I can't quote on McCaffrey, but he's usually really high on snap share there as well. I don't think it was 100, but I know, can I say without a shadow of a doubt, Le'Veon had 100% snap share, and that's what I would expect with a second-year quarterback in Sam Darnold. Give him his little nookie blanket in Darnold. So, not surprised at all. I am surprised a lot of the hot takes were Le'Veon's running style is a very patient one, and how is he going to mesh with the O-line that he hasn't even ran behind before? And you kind of put those trepidations to rest.
Absolutely.
So he's looking all right.
How about the fantasy impact? Forgot to mention Quincy Enunwa. I believe he's out for the rest of the season.
Yeah, he had a neck injury 2 years ago, so it ain't looking good. I mean, he's a deeper tier stash on your dynasty rosters. He's probably not on your roster if your rosters are 20 or 25, but hopefully you're not playing in a dynasty league that only has 20 roster spots.
Would you take anything you could get for him if you got a fourth for him? Would you sell?
Yep, I would sell. Easy.
Would you say he's a fair cut?
I dropped him on one of my leagues to pick up a player. So,
okay,
that player was Gardner Minshew, but that's another story.
On the Bills side of things, I don't recall if I'd actually said it on the podcast, but we were watching football last week. Of course, we recorded right before the games on Sunday. Quick little sidebar. You talk about first world problems. Probably the worst thing that could possibly happen to fantasy football addicts as ourselves happened on Sunday. We're in the middle of watching the games. I had my laptop up, my iPad up, my phone up.
70-inch TV was streaming up.
Red zone going, and all of a sudden everything freezes. The TV freezes. Essentially, Comcast.
It was about 1:10 late in the second quarter of most games.
Had an outage.
Called our cable provider, and there was an outage that was supposed to go for another 4 hours, man. We were sweating bullets. I literally started sweating bullets, like just a visceral reaction to it.
Pulled up my phone, had a good enough LTE signal.
We were able to stream some Red Zone for a little bit, and luckily our cable service was back up in about an hour. But, man.
It teased a little bit. It came in for about 5 minutes, and then it froze again. But
we made it through.
Anyways. That was rough. Back on topic here. While were having a lot of discussions about that, I had talked about John Brown. I had actually swapped him in on my lineup right before one of the games started, and I'm very happy that I did. I think with his speed and with Josh Allen there, I think there's going to be a connection. I don't think that was a fluke. What do you think?
Oh, he is their number one receiver there. I guess you got Cole Beasley as that slot guy, and then there's Robert Foster and Zay Jones fighting through. But yeah, John Brown's got the speed. I still think it's kind of he's more of a, if you have him and he's your fourth receiver, you're feeling pretty good. But if he's like your second or third receiver, or God forbid, first receiver, I ain't feeling good about your dynasty squad at all. Yeah. But is he a nice end of the stash, fourth, fifth receiver to like, I'm starting him on my fourth or fifth receiver? Yeah, I can feel good about that.
Absolutely.
Long term, I'm not necessarily sure, but
yeah,
it's a good depth stash.
I'm with you there. Quite a bit more games to get through. Let's cruise through these here.
Sure.
Eagles, Redskins. I know we're going to do a deep dive onto Scary Terry later. Yeah. The Eagles came back. They weren't looking great as far as that game was going. Let's talk about Miles Sanders. Rookie. He went very high, top 3 in most rookie drafts.
Yep.
He had 11 carries, 25 yards, 2 receptions. What do you think about Miles Sanders?
Yeah, and he was creeping up the rookie drafts as the rookie drafts were going initially in the year. Maybe like in May, he was kind of in a mid-tier, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, but continued to creep up. Yeah, he's going to get his love. I mean, they still want to get Sproles in. He's the experienced back. He was getting some more snaps than maybe he normally was, Sproles was. And then you got Howard there, so it's going to be tough for him to really make a huge impact. Again, I think as the year goes, progression, he'll continue to show out and I think supplant some of those Jordan Howard carries. You maybe, for, again, some of those knee-jerk reaction owners out there, wait a couple weeks. I'm guessing he's probably not going to do too much just because of that timeshare there. See if you can maybe acquire him.
Sure. We'll talk about the Redskins later. We have both Guice and Scary Terry on our list. Colts Chargers. Colts put up 24 points. The game went into overtime. Brissett, he didn't look too bad. Marlon Mack, almost 175 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, really surprised about the Mack train. Brisket, I just like to call him that because brisket's my favorite type of meat. The T.Y. Hilton 2 touchdown, I'm calling that as a fluke. I don't think that's going to be something that we're going to be seeing, on a consistent basis. But I was pleasantly surprised with the Mack train. There was a lot of heat on Twitter about after Luck retired, it's going to be Mack that's the guy that suffers the most. But he looked nice.
He did.
And that offensive line is a beast, so put anybody in there.
For the Chargers, my bold prediction was that Mike Williams is going to outscore Keenan Allen this year. Currently, he's losing that battle, and he might have some knee injuries.
Correct.
He might be out for, we don't know. We'll find out, right?
Yeah. Tell me about that Eckler, man. How you feel about that?
As you know, I'm one of the biggest Eckler
truthers
fans. I'm a huge Eckler truther. I said on the podcast he's going to do amazing because he is amazing. They don't need Melvin Gordon. Austin Eckler, 3 touchdowns, 96 yards receiving on 6 catches, and 60 yards on the ground, 58 on the ground. Eckler is a beast. He's the real deal. I don't think they have anything to worry about in the running game.
Yeah, couldn't. I was a little lukewarm on the Eckler train, wondering how Justin Jackson is going to play out. Looks like they turned out all right. Melvin Gordon got to be sweating some bullets over there, man.
Yeah. Bengals and the Seahawks. Joe Mixon didn't look too great. 10 yards on the ground, 7 yards receiving, toying with some injuries.
Yeah, he had the ankle injury, which took him out on the second half. So Gio Dude filled in and did all right. We'll get in deeper into John Ross about the analysis on him a little bit, but surprising to see. As would be a good precursor to it for the Ross situation, just because he hasn't had one of those big games in his career yet.
We'll chat about that.
Yep.
On the Seahawks side, I was really surprised. Tyler Lockett was only targeted 2 times. He had 1 catch. It was for 44 yards.
That's what he does,
and
man.
a touchdown.
That's what he does.
I would think he'd be targeted more. I think he would be the clear-cut number 1. But
you would think. DK Metcalf, he looked nice. I'm not gonna lie. Again, I'm pretty low on DK Metcalf. He's one of those guys with the high athlete but low production that I'm not a big fan of.
Yep.
He looked nice, and Wilson was peppering him. The other analysis I'd put on is Chris Carson looks like he's breaking away on that running back situation there. Penny didn't really get a whole lot of action. He was a guy I was trying to buy in the offseason just because when a team spends first-round capital on a running back, that's the type of guy that they're eventually going to get in and is going to play. Penny's going to get his chances at some point. He looked good last season when he was a rookie and when he was getting his spots. I'd be trying to acquire Penny if you can. A second might be able to get it done. You might not feel comfortable about that right now, but if I could catch him for a second, considering that last year he was going the mid-first round of rookie drafts, throw out a second and see if you can get Penny. That team, Seahawks, are continuing to run it. They love to run it. Penny's going to get his shot.
I would buy Penny for a second. I wouldn't sell him for a second because I have him.
Yep.
I like him. I agree. He will get his shot. I think it's not that he's not good.
Throw a second and a third in for some juice, for some sugar.
I think Chris Carson's just too talented on things. Next game, we have Detroit Lions and the Arizona Cardinals ended in a tie. Let's talk T.J. Hawkinson. All right,
yeah, man,
we
they're
have
calling
this
him
tight
T.J.
end.
Gronkinson apparently on
T.J.
the
Gronkinson.
Roto-World app.
Love it.
Yeah, we already knew he was a beast. The The only thing we didn't know is he was going to have one of the greatest rookie tight end games for a debut of all time. Yeah, he was an absolute beast, but no one's surprised.
Absolutely. I knew he was going to be good. In Dynasty, we talk about taking the best player available always. In our draft this year,
BPA.
I had the 1-1 and the 1-6. First overall, I took N'Keal Harry. When it came to me at 6, I was thinking of a number of different receivers I was going to get because there were so many this year. TJ Hawkinson fell to me at number 6.
Can't pass it up.
Could not pass it up. So I took him. I have Dallas Goedert. I have Mark Andrews. I took TJ Hawkinson. I wanted him. I took him.
Yeah,
no regrets.
Not hating.
Cardinals, would you say Kyler Murray had the comeback of the week from comparing to what he looked like to what he did?
He was looking like absolute garbage trash for the first 3 quarters, man. But he turned it on in the fourth quarter, got into overtime, started flinging that ball. Man, David Johnson's going to have a big year this year. Top 5 running back, no question, in my opinion. Getting up there a little bit long in the tooth for running back years at 27 years old is an interesting case of bias of depending if you're trying to keep on that curve of staying young at running back because running backs are so replaceable. Can you sell David Johnson? If you're a contender, I'm not selling him because I think he's just having a beast year, and I'm liking what I'm seeing there along with just all the receivers. Christian Kirk had 12 targets, man. Christian Kirk's one of my guys. He had 12 targets, didn't make as much out of it as we'd have liked to, got a 2-point conversion. I'm expecting to continue to be bigger things, but it's going to be tough here against Baltimore coming up in week 2. But just continue to believe, man. #believe.
Cowboys, Giants. Dak looked pretty awesome. Zeke looked good. He didn't have that much fantasy production.
No, they're still putting him back in getting him ready.
Dynasty production. Obviously, we both love Amari Cooper. How about Michael Gallup? He had the most points receiving. He was 7 for 7 with 158 yards. It's a lot of yards. That's a lot of targets.
He had a lot of yards. Historically, the Cowboys are trying to grind it out. Dak, I think, is better than people give him credit for. Amari Cooper's still the number 1 by far. Amari Cooper is a beast, straight up. He's still the number 1 receiver there. I'm not sure that offense can support 2 receivers the way that, say, the Vikings offense did last year. I'm not saying it's going to happen this year. Gallup's nice value. Again, he's one of those guys that if I'm starting him as my, 5th or 4th receiver on my team, I'm feeling pretty good about it. But if he's, my 3rd receiver or 2nd receiver, I'm not getting too excited about it. But I think he's on the rise.
All right. 49ers, Bucks, looking at this game, specifically from a dynasty perspective, of course. Mike Evans, he had 5 targets, 2 catches, 28 yards. What was going on with that? Is this Winston to blame? Is this Evans? Is this 49ers
it's a little bit of everything.
defense?
Even the Chris Godwin didn't have that much. I think he had 3 catches. What was the stats on Godwin?
3 catches, 6 targets, 53 yards, and a touchdown.
Right. So with Godwin, it's not like he did too much either other than that touchdown. Evans was in and out because he was sick, and I think that was the big reason why he wasn't playing as much.
Oh, that's right.
Yep, and then Winston is just a dumpster fire, and who knows what's going to even happen with him, to be honest with you. I thought Arians was going to calm that guy down. That was what all the offseason hype was, a couple corrections to his footwork, and he was going to be good to go. At this point with Winston,
I'm going to say don't overreact on that. We'll talk about that later. I'm still big on Winston. This, for me, if someone's panicking and offers out, wants to get rid of Winston, wants to dump him, I would use this opportunity to buy.
Okay.
He's still young. That's my take on it. San Francisco, just real quick, the running back situation. I mean, if there ever was a running back by committee, it's San Francisco. I mean, you have Breida, Coleman, Raheem Mostert. You had McKinnon,
well,
who was injured, of course. Coleman's out for a few weeks. Breida's going to be the guy.
Correct. I agree with you. Yep.
What would you pay for Breida if you needed a running back? What's an overpay?
In a PPR league?
Yeah, PPR league. You need one more running back. You're good everywhere else.
A second probably gets it done.
22nd, that seems like a lot.
I'm saying it gets it done.
Probably
if you're in a time crunch, I need a running back. 22nd gets it done. I'd like to maybe... Can I get him for a 3rd and a 4th? You probably can't. You probably got to pay up a little bit.
Yep. Steelers, Patriots.
If you're this early in the season, at first in Dynasty, you don't need a running back in week 2. So if that's your situation, your team probably sucks anyways, and you shouldn't be buying him for a second.
It's good advice. That's fair. Steelers Patriots. That game was just a wipeout. I would boldly say that I think the amazing gold that's been harvested year after year from the Steelers, just fantasy gold mine, I think that's going to decline. I still think Juju's the real deal. I think Connor's going to decline. I don't know.
Who is going to decline?
James Conner.
Oh, James Conner.
Yeah, I think they're going to do more of a committee thing. I said that last time. It wasn't really the case.
No.
But it was week 1.
I'm not worried about it.
3 points.
I'm not worried about it other than Roethlisberger's continue to get long in the tooth because quarterbacks, so we know that those can grind a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not overreacting. That offensive line is really good. I think that the Patriots defense is severely underrated. They're going into Foxborough. That's no easy task. I'm not selling on any of those guys right now. I'm feeling fine with them. I think they'll bounce back easy week 2. But if not, next week you can call me out on it.
Sure. Yeah, we'll discuss that next week. Excuse me. Game of the week. I had said the game I was most excited for. Monday Night Football. Houston Texans.
Nuke.
Saints. This was amazing. Yeah, if you hadn't seen it, check out our Twitter. It posted an amazing video of DeAndre Nuke Hopkins suplexing and just absolutely body slamming the Saints cornerback after the interception. It was pretty amazing. But talking about that game, Deshaun Watson, I still say top 4 quarterback. He looked amazing. DeAndre Hopkins, of course, is amazing. Will Fuller, I think, might be the one to talk about there. People were a little bit worried about him coming back from injury and stuff. He looked fast. He looked good. Randy Moss had some comments on him. He said it wasn't quite Moss, but it still was an amazing catch.
Yeah, I mean, Moss was 6'4". Fuller is smaller than that, but has the wheels 4.3 speed. Not worried about it at all. He only had 2 catches, not sweating it. That offense is going to be, I think, absolutely dynamic on the passing side of things. I know Carlos had a little bit of juice on the run game, but I'm not sure how good their defense is going to be, especially with Jadeveon Clowney out this year. So there's going to be a lot of passing. I wouldn't be sweating the 1 touchdown by Stills or Kiki Cutie. Will Fuller's still going to be a great option, especially in best ball leagues to have because of his high ceiling.
Absolutely. How about on the Saints side? You had specifically said last time that you wanted to see how Latavius Murray integrates into that offense. He had 43 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown and also 2 receptions for 4 yards.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm necessarily high on him. He's could be a good value for your team if you're looking to acquire just a running back to maybe fill in as a deep flex, depending on how many starters you're having in your league. Yeah, he had 40 some yards, but one of the carries was for 30. But how many carries did he have total?
Latavius Murray?
Yep.
I believe I said he had 6 carries for 43 yards.
Okay.
So 7 yards.
So if you take
average.
the long 30-yard touchdown run after that, he wasn't doing much on the ground when I was watching him.
Yeah, that'd be 5 for 13.
Right. I still think they're going to feed him, though. You saw him subbing out with Alvin Kamara, so he did all right.
Yeah.
Jury's still out.
Fair. What a hell of a game, though. I mean, everything happens. Watson drives the ball down, they score. Like, everything comes back, that field goal. That is football, ladies and gentlemen. That's amazing. We love that.
Yep.
And then the final game, Broncos-Raiders. I'd like to commend you, John, on your spot-on analysis of the receivers. You said Flacco is going to target the veteran incumbent in Sanders, and he was targeted pretty heavily. He was relied on for the touchdown. Sutton did look good. He still had 120 yards. That's pretty good. As the year progresses, we would expect to see Sutton continue to rise as he learns from Sanders and becomes more comfortable
Well, I mean,
with that offense.
Sutton already, he's there. He had more yards than Sanders, did he not?
Yes, he did.
And Sanders had some yards too, obviously. But a lot of that was, them playing catch-up towards the end there. Sutton looked, just eye test, looked extremely nice. I wish I had a share of him. I don't have any shares of Sutton. He looked wonderful.
I have a few shares of him. I like him as well. On the Raiders side, we're going to do a deep dive here in just a minute on Josh Jacobs, but let's chat Tyrell the Gazelle. Tyrell Williams. Obviously, AB's gone. Tyrell's the number 1 target there. He had 6 catches for 105 yards and a touchdown. He's going to be the number 1 receiver there. Are you comfortable starting him as a number 2 on your team, or is he not quite there yet? He's the number 3 on the flex.
Dynasty-wise, he's not a guy. If I have him on my Dynasty team, I want to sell him. He's not the type of guy that's going to give you longevity. Even if he has a semi-decent season this season, which I don't think he's going to have anywhere close to a top 12 season or even a top 16 season, irrespective of the fact that he's the number one receiver there. He's probably looking at like later top 24, if that, because I don't think the Raiders are that good. They're going to be spreading it around. I'm not sure how good Derek Carr is either. So he's a guy that I'm selling if I can. If I could trade him and a second for a first, I'm doing it every single time. The 2020 class, we'll get into it at one of these podcasts, man. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. I want a 2020 first. I want it now. So if I can trade Tyrell in a second, if it's like a late second, right, and get him off my team and get a first, I don't care if that first is projected to be late. I'm on it.
You want it?
Yes, this is a great sell high opportunity, and people are always the number one receiver. He might be, but long-term dynasty asset, he hasn't done it.
Sure. Derek Carr was 22 for 26, 259 yards and a touchdown, so 85% accuracy. I think Carr is a little bit underrated, but we'll see.
Fair enough.
Moving on, so we did kind of the intro. We did the recap of all the games. We want to have a different topic each week. This week we had a few of our friends kind of ask us about some players. So we put together 5 different players that we want to kind of do a deep dive on, based on week 1 reactions. So do you want me to name on the players, or you just want to do them one at a time and dive in?
Let's hit it one by one, man. We've kind of alluded to pretty much everyone that we're going to do a deep dive
that's right, we have. First up, let's talk Scary Terry. Of course, we're talking Terry McLaurin, wide receiver, Washington Redskins.
Yeah, man. So he had the big week last week, right? Could have had 2 touchdowns if Case Keenum overthrew him. Rookie this year, 6 feet tall, 208 pounds, right? Ran a 4.35 and I had a 37.5-inch vertical at the combine, man. So there's a reason why they call him Scary Terry with that speed, right? Yeah, he went for 5 catches, 125 yards, and a touchdown at week 1. So that's a great debut for a rookie. The Redskins took him at the 76 overall, so in the 3rd round, right? So he doesn't have as much draft pedigree as maybe we'd like.
12th
right?
pick in the 3rd round.
And there's a reason why, right? Because this guy, yeah, sure, he's got the burner jets. He's an athlete. He's gifted. But I want to talk about, this is what his college production was. Okay? So his sophomore year, he had 11 catches for 114 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's nothing, right? His junior year, he had 29 catches, 436 yards, 6 catches. Meh. And this was at Ohio State, by the way. So, Big Ten. Senior year, he had only 35 catches for 701 yards and 11 touchdowns. So, over the course of his career, he had 1,200 yards. Now, to give you a comparison, okay? Now, this is going to be a guy who had deep production, but just to give you a comparison, right? Amari Cooper, who's 6'1" and ran a 4.42 at the combine, so a little bit slower, and I don't mean to compare them necessarily completely, but the weights are the same too. Cooper was at 210, weighing in at 210, right? In his 3-year college career, in the SEC at Alabama, he had 3,400 yards, so almost triple the production of Scary Terry, and he had 31 touchdowns compared to Scary Terry's 19. Same 3-year span, okay? In Big Ten, SEC, pretty close, but SEC is a little bit more difficult competition. So the Scary Terry hype, man, is that he's athletic. He's got this metric marvel, we call him, right? But his production, he wasn't able to pan out in college as far as being able to have the crazy production that we want or would expect for someone that's so athletically gifted, right? It's like one of those guys like Kevin White. Wow.
Right.
Absolute speed. Had 1 good year at West Virginia. Or Chris Conley is a metric guy that comes to mind.
Was it Laquan Treadwell? Did he have good stats? Because I know he
had good production, but he didn't have the...
He had the opposite.
Yeah, he was slow.
Well, I want to dig into this. I got some questions on you.
I'm not done, but I'm almost done with it.
I'm going to let you finish.
Because I'm going to get to my point about what the Dynasty action plan is. Okay, saying all of the negative things that I just said. Well, I said some positives because he's athletic, right? He's got a couple of things working in his favor. One is his college quarterback was Dwayne Haskins. So inevitably when Case Keenum falters, because we know that he's going to falter, Dwayne Haskins is taking over. But in addition to that, he's doing fine with Case Keenum. I'm thinking he's probably the number 1 receiver there. Jordan Reed, rest in peace. Okay, that ain't looking very good. Vernon Davis is long in the tooth. He had a sick touchdown.
He did have an amazing touchdown.
Trey Quinn, slot guy, and then Paul Richardson. it's very possible that this guy's the number one receiver and playing on a Redskins team this year that is going to be passing the ball a lot. So here's what my dynasty action plan is pretty simple. I don't think he can keep this up, but he is a lightning in the bottle situation here with Haskins, with him being the number one receiver. I would not be surprised if the Redskins draft a receiver from the 2020 class next year when they have a nice high early pick. Terry's going to put up some more big games this year. Okay, guaranteed. He'll have some boom bust because the Redskins are boom bust. But he's going to have some big games because the Redskins are going to be playing from behind. If you can get a 2020 first from him, selling. If your team is contending and he's a 4 or 5 wide receiver for you, I might be holding that. But if I'm a middling team, or if he's a guy that isn't even in my starting lineup, but he's putting up these numbers, if I can get a 2020 first, and I wouldn't be surprised because I think he will continue to make this production. I wouldn't be surprised mid-year that you're going to be able to get even more from him than a 2020 first, potentially. But over the long haul, I got some trepidation about him. Just based on the fact of his profile that he had in college. He wasn't dominant.
Fair. A lot of good points there. The part I want to extract to dig into is you talk about fantasy football. Who do you want on your team? You want people who have talent, and you want people who have opportunity. I would argue that the Metric Marvel has the talent. Now the question is, does he have the opportunity?
He does.
And I'll be honest, I didn't watch a lot of college football. I don't know a lot. I haven't grinded the film yet. That's something I'm getting into now. Did he have the opportunity in college, or did he have people in front of him?
He had the opportunity, just like any other receiver, to be able to be the team's number one receiver. And with what opportunity he did have, he made a fair impression stats-wise, right? Like his senior year, he had 35 catches, 701 yards, and 11 touchdowns. But to give you a comparison of another guy we're going to talk about, John Ross, on his senior year had 17 touchdowns and 1,150 yards in his senior year, which is more than Scary Terry had his entire career. So if you're good enough, cream rises to the top, generally speaking.
Good points.
But he's got opportunity on the Redskins, and I would not be surprised if he continues it.
Yeah. What about his teammate? Let's talk Darius Guice, the Juice.
Ooh, man, I'm pretty high on him. 9 Dynasty leagues. I got 2 shares of him, which isn't a lot, but one of them is in my big league. 5'11", 220, ran a 4.49 at the combine 2 years ago. Obviously sat out all of last year with the torn ACL from the preseason. Came back this year, and he had 10 carries for 18 yards, if I'm not mistaken. This against the Eagles this past week.
10 carries, 18 yards.
In college, just an absolute beast. Had 1,300 yards his sophomore season, 15 touchdowns. Junior year, he had 1,200 yards and 11 touchdowns. Some issues, he didn't really have a lot of receiving production, but his rushing production was absolutely excellent. And I think there were some reports about him being able to catch the ball in the offseason, even though they got Chris Thompson there. Really disappointed to hear about this meniscus situation, but I'm still buying. This is a great opportunity to buy because now there is a buy window here while EP comes back. The Redskins drafted this guy. He fell due to maybe some character issues, questions about that. If I can sell it at 2020, do I want to say that? If I know I have a late 2020 first, I'm buying Guice with it. Still believe that Guice is nice.
You think Guice is worth a late 2020 first?
Yeah, I think that's going to be what it probably takes to buy because the people who have him are invested in it. But I think I wouldn't pay any more than that, but I think that gets the job done. And I've sent out offers in other leagues for that.
Interesting. Well, I'm excited to hear how those pan out for you on that. That seems like an overpay. I bought into a little bit of the Guice hype. I have a few shares of him. But all along I've been saying, what has he done in the NFL? College is one thing. People tear it up in college, and they get to the NFL, and things don't happen. The
Yeah, he
opposite
tore it up in
happens
the
too.
SEC, though. That's the gold standard.
Sure. I mean, generally things can be good indicators, but what has he done in the NFL?
Well, you can't count last year because he tore his ACL.
Well, availability is an important part of fantasy football, though. If you're constantly injured like Hunter Henry.
Right. And I hear you on that. That's sort of the risk that you're taking with this meniscus situation. But I mean, shoot, I was trying to buy him for seconds, and no one was selling when he was about to start, right? Because a lot of people had him, like Saquon Barkley's obviously in a tier of his own.
Yes.
But pre-draft 2018
Yes.
or during the rookie draft process, there were actually people on Twitter that had Guice above Barkley, and I think that's just sacrilegious.
That is,
and this is
incredible.
before Barkley started playing, right?
Yeah.
But Guice was like a tier of his own. It was Barkley, Guice, and then you had your Chubb, Penny, so on and so forth.
Sony carry on.
Yep, Sony carry on.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay.
So I'm still believing, man.
Okay. Yeah. I might throw out some offers in some leagues for him too. See what happens.
Trust the process.
John Ross. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but wasn't he a first round rookie pick in most leagues?
Correct. He was going in the later first round of rookie drafts, 1-9, 1-10. Sometimes you could find him at. I even saw him in the early seconds of some drafts and with some variance in like the middle firsts. But a lot of those picks in 2017 were going to be your running backs. Because you also had Kamara there, for instance, Juju. Off the top of my head, some names are escaping me.
Fournette,
but he was
Cook.
Yeah, Fournette. Yeah, Cook. You're right. But Fournette was going
It was all
in
that
first
class.
overall.
Mike
Yep.
Williams, Corey Davis.
Yep.
Okay. What he did there, he obviously had a huge, massive game. He surprised a lot of people. He's got speed. Is he going to be a fit this year? Is this a one-game fluke? I mean, we don't want to overreact, but at the same time, if this is any indication of what's to come, is he a buy?
So
I think you said you'd sell him for a first, right?
Yeah, I don't think you can get that. But what I was saying is I would sell Ross in a second for a first. Would be my action plan on it, and see what you can get. Maybe even throw in a third if you need to. Yeah, he ran a 4.2. We all know about that. Broke the combine record for 40 speed. I said earlier, senior season, man, was 81 catches, which is a lot for the guy. 1,150 yards and 17 touchdowns. He didn't have any production in junior year or sophomore year to speak of, though that was the big one, was his senior year. Last year, or 2 years ago, I should say, he injured himself. He's been perpetually injured. Last year, just a real weird stat line, right? So he had 7 touchdowns, but only had 21 catches, so almost like a poor man's Tyler Lockett, but didn't have the yards with it, with only 210 yards. What the hell? This is going to be a big-time sell for me, no questions asked, because you got A.J. Green, who, again, I know, long in the tooth, 31 years old, but he's coming back, reports today, even though that he took off his walking boot. Then you got Tyler Boyd, who's all the rage and had a solid season last year. So Ross comes back, or A.J. Green comes back, and they also got Mixon with the strong running game, and Ross is probably the third receiver there in an offense that I don't think can even support a third receiver. It's an absolute sell for me. You can probably sell him for a second straight. I'd like to get a little juice on that, but if someone offered me a second and I wasn't contending, shoot, man, he was worth, at the start of the season, you probably couldn't even sell him for a fourth. Maybe you could sell him for a fourth, but a third wasn't happening. So he's a sell for me, man.
Here's my take on that.
Yeah,
so
go for it.
You buy this guy for a first-round pick. And again, I talked about
Late
how
first,
Dynasty is like the stock market. So let's say you buy him for $100. That's what he's valued in the first round, okay? He doesn't do anything year after year. His value goes all the way down to $10 or $20. It's a fraction. He's not worth anything. You could sell for that and maybe take that little bit of whatever, a fourth you get, and reinvest it in something else, or you could hold. All of a sudden, something happens. News breaks to shareholders. Boom, his stock is way back up here. So now you got to ask yourself, are you selling while the value is close to what you bought it at, or maybe even exceeding?
Well, that's the difference here. I would never draft John Ross with a first-round draft pick. Never did. Just too small. Situation didn't look good. So how I acquired him, so right, his 17 season was nothing, right? It was a wash because he got injured. He had like one catch and he got hit and fumbled it, and then he was out for the rest of the season, right? So I acquired him in some 18 rookie draft or 18 startup drafts, like late, and he's just been kind of miring away out of him. I had him on a best ball roster, so I was feeling pretty good about that this past week. And then I acquired him in another startup draft this summer that you and I were in. And I probably got him in like the 20th round, right?
For the non-elite minds as yourself, who did take him in the first, though, who did pay that capital for them, is now the time to get back what they could? You said he's an absolute sell, so I believe the answer to that is yes. I just want to confirm.
Especially being a third receiver there.
Because the other option is wait and see if that stock starts to take dividends.
If I get a second from him, I'm probably selling. I don't know. If I'm in a best ball league with him, maybe I'm holding just because I think that ceiling can. If he showed us his ceiling, if I'm in a best ball league, I'm probably wanting a little bit more than a second. But if it's just like a starter player, if I can get a second, especially like a 10-team Superflex league, man, those seconds in 2020 are going to be absolutely bonus, man. Because I could lay out the first round for you and it's shooting fish in a barrel. Like just put your hand in, grab a guy, and you're going to be good to go. So those second round draft picks even in a 12, but in a 10-team Superflex league, have so much more amount value.
Money. Love it. Love it, love it. Two more players to analyze. Next up on the list is Josh Jacobs. I had talked about him, about how that's who I was excited to see on the Raiders. Let's see what this rookie can do. He rose to the top of a lot of draft boards. He went number 1 overall. As I mentioned, he had 2 touchdowns, 85 yards.
Number 1 overall on a lot of rookie drafts, yeah.
Yes. Number 1 in a lot of rookie drafts. Thanks for clarifying, yeah. What's the take on him?
Yeah, and then some people went carry on him too. So a really interesting case, right? So his freshman year, and I want you to compare this to the Guice, where I said he had like Darius Guice, he had 1,300 yards and 1,200 yards his sophomore and junior season. Just to give the listeners kind of a perspective on this. Both playing in the SEC, right? Guice played for LSU. Jacobs played for Alabama, right? So we know what Guice's yards were, 1,300 and 1,200 in his sophomore and junior season, okay? Jacobs' rushing yards. Care to take a guess how many rushing yards he had?
I remember hearing he had very little college production. So I'm going to guess like 500, but I have no clue.
You would be even worse. I'll say his freshman, because I'll say his freshman. So his freshman was 567. Sophomore, with 4 touchdowns. Sophomore year, 284 yards. 1 touchdown. Junior year, 640 yards, 11 touchdowns. Okay? Now, his receiving, on the other hand, for the guy that looks kind of big, chunky, and stocky, you'd think he wouldn't be that good of a receiver. His receiving was actually really good. His senior year, or junior year, he had 20 catches, 247 yards, which was pretty good for college production for a running back, right? So he's interesting, right? He ran a 4.52, 4.56 range on his second college pro day. Beforehand, he had a 40-yard time that was in like the 4.6s, but he was able to improve on his pro day. He had a groin injury, so I think that might have been part of it as well. Like I said, productive on the receiving side of things. Rushing-wise, here's the caveat that I'm going to put in there. Part of the reason why his rushing score was so much lower, I think, I'm going to give, whenever there's a back at like Georgia, Alabama, we call those like the RBU universities. You know, Damian Harris actually had more rushing yards last year at Alabama. It was around 1,000 than Jacobs did in both years, in both his sophomore and junior year for Jacobs. So they're splitting carries. Jacobs had 11 touchdowns last year, so he's kind of like a bowling ball in that respect. So I think if Jacobs were to have gone to a different school where they didn't have the split, I'm thinking that Jacobs probably would have had more rushing yards than he did. So I like where he's sitting right now with the Oakland Raiders. Any of the 2020 running backs, we're talking about Etienne, Swift, Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin, Cam Akers even, any of those guys are going to be more metrically sound, more production, the whole 9 yards, way safer than Jacobs. Like Jacobs would be a late first in 2020. Okay. Superflex league, yeah, late first. That being said, I like where he is right now. I don't mind it. I think there's not really a sell or buy line. I think that he's the type of guy, if you have him, you're holding. If you're trying to buy him, you're not going to get him because he just had a big game. Yeah. And I wouldn't necessarily be trying to sell either because I think he's going to have a solid year. If you're a contender and you
Yep.
got him, he's going to get fair value for you, and he's going to be a solid-ish running back for you, I think, down the stretch. We're looking at back-end RB1 type of player. I don't think he's ever going to be a top 5 dynasty running back asset by any means.
Yeah.
But is he a fine asset to have? Yes.
Well, talent and opportunity. I was surprised on the rookie drafts how high he rose up. And when looking into the little bit that I did on the research, because he didn't have that huge college production, it's like, where's this guy coming from?
Yep.
Why is he so high? But then he goes out there and has, I believe, the best of any of the rookie
Yeah,
running
he was
backs,
first
so.
running back drafted, so.
He was a 24th overall pick in the draft. Last player we have to analyze here before we sign off for the night. I was calling him Munchkin because I had never heard of this guy.
No, I haven't either.
Foles gets injured. Next thing, this guy with the porn mustache comes out on the screen. I'm like, I see the back of his jersey. I see him in a bunch of letters.
Minshew.
I'm like, who the hell is this Munchkin guy?
Yeah.
So Gardner Minshew, I pulled up some quick stats on him. And I lost them.
That's right.
You go ahead and start your analysis on them.
Yeah, I know it's funny because this entire week you had Munchkin was in the back of my head, and so whenever I was trying to I was looking him up, doing some extra research on him, I kept remembering his last name, forgetting his last name because I thought it was Munchkin and I couldn't remember it's Minshew. Now I finally get it memorized, right? Yeah. So Gardner Minshew.
Yep.
6'1", 225. That's not a gigantic frame by any means for a quarterback. I mean, you got Kyler Murray here who's going to be, Kyler Murray's like 5'10", 5'11", right? But
Yep.
Minshew, 6'1", 225. His last year here at Washington State, he had a 70.7% completion percentage, finished actually 5th in Heisman voting, had 38 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That is not bad whatsoever, and had 4,700 yards passing. And that completion percentage that you saw, 70%, is a great number to have. You saw that play and exactly what happened with the Chiefs. Now, granted, the Chiefs defense probably isn't A class, but he went 22 for 25 for 278 yards and 2 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. That's nothing to sneeze at on a rookie quarterback drafted in the 6th round, coming in with no prior experience.
Nothing, yeah. He's just
even against the Chiefs. I absolutely loved it. Coming out of college, had good accuracy. The question, the reason why he kind of fell, I think his size, 6'1", that's not prototypical. So you have to be absolutely elite in all facets in order to rise up like a Kyler Murray did. And his velocity was another question that I think a lot of people had, just the velocity on the ball. This is a guy that's on a lot of Dynasty waiver wires. So here's the Dynasty action plan. And again, this being on Wednesday night, a lot of this may have passed, but waiver wire, here's what I saw today. I saw 100. We had a free agent budget of $100. 2 teams bid 100. We had a tiebreaker. One got it. Another person was like, "What's the tiebreaker?" Right? And it was a super flex league, right? And it's deep rosters, right? So it's not like a tertiary guys on the roster. I mean, the waiver wire is absolutely bone dry. So when a guy like Minshew comes out, you got to pay for him. Yeah, in a super flex league, I'd actually spend all my money, blow it all, man. In a 1 quarterback league, I'm putting out a feeler out there if the rosters are deep enough just to have him on my roster, but it's tough. I am excited. Nick Foles is supposed to come back, but I'm kind of excited what he could do just because he was pretty good when he was in college, and he did absolutely great, 22 for 25, like I said, against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So he's a guy that I'm interested in a super flex league to acquire.
Absolutely. This isn't the first time this has happened in the NFL. Let's look at Kurt Warner. Let's look at Tom Brady. Didn't both these guys come in after somebody else was injured? They came in with opportunity, surprised a lot of people.
Yeah, Tom Brady was 6th round.
I'm not saying this guy's Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I'm just saying this type of story has happened before.
Sure, it would be another shot in a flash in the pan, shot in the dark, but
perfect.
He's interesting.
Well, I think that about wraps it up for the main 5 players. So we're going to end with some dynasty advice here. So a common theme we had talked about a little bit today that John had definitely brought up is don't overreact to week 1. Don't push the panic button. If someone else is pushing the panic button, it might be a good time to take advantage of them. But my take is that you can wait until the middle of the season. You can wait a few weeks. You can find out if you are a contender or a pretender, and then decide to go all in or sell. We're going to be talking about that a lot as we get through this week. John?
Yeah, man, my final last words, just one piece of advice, is just to piggyback off of Brent. This is Dynasty. Okay, this isn't redraft. This isn't DFS, right? We're not playing prop bets. This is Dynasty. So you have to look at it the long haul. And if you're overreacting in week one, man, you need to reassess things, right? The number one attribute that you can have in this game, the best, in my opinion, character trait to be the best Dynasty owners you could possibly be, is the word patience. If you can be patient and not overreact, not have those knee-jerk reactions to, oh my gosh, so and so didn't score a touchdown this week. I need to sell, or somebody's injured. They're not worth anything, right? That's the type of mindset that's going to have you miring in a deep state of sadness for your Dynasty career. So my piece of advice is exactly what Brent said. This is Dynasty, so be patient and do not overreact, but take advantage of those owners that are quick to pull the eject button.
Absolutely. Thanks, John. As we grow this podcast, make sure to leave us ratings, reviews, share this with a friend. Hit us up on Twitter if you have questions, or Instagram at DynastyGuys247. And remember, Dynasty Fantasy Football is 24/7, 365.
All day, every day.